Yes, I think the recording has started. Good morning, everyone. Namaste, and thank you so much for joining today. Today is today's Folklore Foundation's again online session of this month of April, and today we have Mukunda Ramarao sir as our speaker, and we will be discussing on Charyapada themes on Bhakti and Baul songs. May I now request, and thank you so much everyone for joining in. We will be having online participants soon. May I now request Anand Manan sir to formally introduce our guest for the day. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Subransu. Respected Mr. Rao and distinguished audience and participants, I would like to welcome you all and thank Dr. Rao, Mr. Mukunda Rao for accepting our invitation. This session is very special because we are listening to an eminent writer, translator, who has done extensive work in Indian languages. He has done translation from Indian languages. So this is something very unique. And though the session is written as, it is referred to as Charyapada, Bhakti and Baul songs, we are not limiting to it, but we'll be dealing with all aspects of translation. Mr. Rao will be sharing his ideas and experiences about translation and his journey as a writer and translator. So it is not limited to these three things, though we may have some discussion on them also. As I said in the beginning, he was a bit reluctant to speak because he's a very private person, very unassuming, though he has done a lot of work. Still, on my insistence, he agreed to speak. So we are very happy and grateful to him for this. Now, Dr. Mishra has joined us, so maybe he will say a few words. Before that, let me introduce Mr. Rao formally. Mr. Mukunda Ramarao is a poet, translator, and writer based in Hyderabad. He was born at Kharagpur, West Bengal. He has completed his MSc, DIIT, and PGDCS. PGDCS. He worked as an IT professional and retired from Hewlett-Packard, Bangalore in December 2006. He has 9 collections of Telugu poetry. His poems have been translated into Hindi, Urdu, Malayalam, Bengali, Odia, Kannada, English, and Polish. His book of translation in English is titled The Smile That Migrated and Other Poems. In Kannada, it is called Balasho de Mandahasa. He has translated extremely extensively into Telugu. He has published 14 collections of translation from Bengali, Odia, and English, Kannada, and so on. His awards include Telugu University Kirti Puraskaram for Best Poetry in 2008, C.P. Brown Award for Translation Works in 2016, Telugu University Sahitya Puraskaram for Best Translation in 2017, and P. Ramarao Award for the book Ade Nila. Today he will share his experience as a translator. This will be more of an interactive kind of session. First he will speak for half an hour or so, and then we shall ask him questions to say more about his translations and his about journey. So thank you, Mr. Rao, for accepting our invitation to interact with us, and we welcome you to our midst. Now, maybe we'll ask Dr. Mishra to say a few words.
Professor Anand Mahanan and our dear poet, Mr. Mukunda Ramarao, who is a multilingual poet in this country, and all my friends, Savir from Bangladesh, and all my friends. I think because of the heavy rain in Odisha, in South and Western Odisha, most of the participants have not been able to attend. This is one issue. So anyway, but we have to listen to our poet, Mr. Ramarao ji, and as I know from his CV and the discussion with Professor Mahanan, that Mr. Ramarao is a multilingual poet. He knows more than 5 to 6 languages, Indian languages, and his beauty of writing poetry and translating poetry is not based on following the English or translating the poetry from English to other Indian languages, but from one Indian language to other Indian languages, and which is the most important thing that we have not been able to address till now, even after independence. So very few poets are there who really translate from one language to the other. As I know, I think Mr. Ramarao, the birthplace is Kharagpur, then he must be knowing Bangla.
Yeah, true.
Then home language is Telugu. Then served in Karnataka, so he knows Kannada. And Hindi is a communicative language. And Odia, I don't know how he learned Odia. That is interesting thing to know from Mukundji. And also English, a language of wider communication. So I think that his presence and the topic is very fascinating. Charyapada and Baul songs. And both the things are really highly illuminating because of all the Magadhi and Ardha Magadhi languages of Eastern India are primarily from Charyapada. This is one. And second one is the Baul songs. Bauls means, in Sanskrit it is called Batula. That means madman songs.
Right.
Who is a madman for what? And that is the beauty of this Baul song which Rabindranath Tagore was following. He also became a Baul. Similarly, Kazi Nazrul Islam also. The most of the Bengali people, as our Mukundi is from Kharagpur, he knows that how Bengali people are crazy after the Baul songs. And that Baul songs is a song of connectivity between crossing the boundaries of castes and religion. And we are happy that we have got Mr. Mukundji today. And I know that he is a versatile reader and he has a multidisciplinary approach to knowledge. He reads a lot of things, he knows a lot of things, and that really makes his knowledge enriched with Indian tradition. So I think that today's deliberation, maybe the number is very less, there is no issue, but in Indian situation, in Indian discourse, it is told that Mana and Chaitanya and Agastya Rishi and Manu Raja, two people used to make discourse. Only two people are enough to make any kind of discussion. Here we are more than two. Therefore, we think that the good knowledge and the deep knowledge that is only possible with the reflective few people, not unreflective many. Could be there are 100% people, 100 persons And out of that, only 10 to 20% are very seriously, attentively listening to it and deliberating to it or discussing it. So today, when Ankit is there, PK, Sabir, and Nimai, Anandji, and myself, and one or two another fellows, like Panchanand Duria has come, and some other people will also join because of the rainy season. But because of the rain, the problem must have occurred. So I request Professor Mahanand to initiate the dialogue, initiate the speech of Mr. Mukund, and also some stanzas of the songs from Kannada, Odia, Bangla, and Hindi and Telugu. And after his deliberation, some Charyapada and Baul song is over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, it would be an interactive kind of session. So now perhaps we could request Mr. Rao to speak about his experience, his journey as a translator, and so on. Yes, sir.
Right. Let me thank one and all of you for making me to speak to whatever I know little about. I'm not a good speaker. First, let me confess about it. And second thing is that, I'm not a professional wherein I go through the sessions like this. But still, I feel that whatever I have gone through, the process of writing process, whatever experiences I had and I have, I'll be able to share with you. I will try that. Maybe I will start with the book I have started, and from then on, how I have come up to this stage. So that may perhaps give the full knowledge about the works I have done. First, let me start with the works I have started. And, when I was working in the IT, I had very little time to go through the literature part, although I was interested in the literature right from my college days. So the software is such a profession wherein you don't get time. Even up to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, people used to work, and only even on Saturdays, Sundays also we used to be there. So, but even then, when you have the interest, perhaps that interest takes you, squeezes out some time for you to make use of. That is how I could able to do that. When I had been to New York for about 1.5 years or so, I worked there as an IT professional there, working for New York Stock Exchange software we were developing at that time. During the weekends, I had a good fortune of spending most of my time during the weekends in the New York State Library. New York State Library is such a great and good library. In fact, each country, even in each country also, there are some languages, they have their own rooms separate, like Telugu had a separate room, Bengali has a separate room in the buildings. You can understand the amount of books they could able to procure and put it in the library. So that was one good fortune I had while I was there in New York. And I used to spend most of my time during weekends there in the library. And you believe it or not, when I used to go there about by 8:30, 9 o'clock, and by the time it was 9, 10 o'clock in the night, I was feeling bad that, it's already 10 o'clock in the night. So much I was immersed in going to the books. And that had helped me to learn so much. And going through the literature of so many countries, so many languages. And I used to enjoy a lot reading them, and whatever had made me to go through more in that, I used to take a photocopy of that, take a note of that. And at that time, I had no time to translate and do the work on that. But it had helped me to collect the material for the future use. In fact, I don't know at that time whether I could use them at a later time. But nevertheless, I could not I could not refrain uh, not noting or not taking out those notes from the libraries I visited there. So that was the starting point wherein I could collect a lot of material and read a lot of literature there of my interest. So when I was there, the Satabdala Sufi Kavitam, the Sufi was one of the interesting poetry at that time for me while I was there in New York. So I could collect many poems and poetry, the collections from there, and some of the books I even purchased there. So this thing I could do it only while I was there in New York. After coming back from New York, whatever collections I had, I started translating them whenever I used to get some little bit of time for the interest I had. So after the completion of the New York work, when I came back and spoke about this to my literary friends, they said, why not it should come as a book rather than keeping it to yourself. So that is how the Satabdala Sufi Kavitam, the centuries of Sufi poetry, starting from Rabia to the 20th century, all the poets' poems along with their introduction, I could give it in this book. So after that, so little bit I'll go through the step by step the process in which I've completed my works. That will give you perhaps an insight into how the work has gone into and how I have perceived it. So while I was there, even I could collect a lot of material, and not only the Sufi poetry, even the other poetries of my interest. So after Sufi poetry, I have translated the poets of my interest, mostly the Western poets at that time, because I could have the opportunity of getting so many poetry books there, not only in the libraries, even the bookstalls there. Perhaps you may be aware that, there the bookstores doesn't keep you away from the books like the bookstores we have in India. You can put your hand there, you can take that book, you can read that book, you can even note down the portions which that has created some interest in you. It doesn't bar you from that. So it's almost a bookstores are almost like libraries there in US. That is one great thing I have found in US. And so there was no limit on how to access of the books there. And if you want to read, there are n number of books. Only time is the limitation, and and the interest is the limitation. Otherwise, sky is the limit for that. So after coming from there, I have translated those not only Sufi poetry and the Western poets also have translated after that. Then a time came when I had to go to Spain the next time. The first time, in fact, not I come to this thing. First time when I'd been to Spain for the software work. So I had a lot of thinking about the foreign countries. It will be like this, it will be like that, and so many things. Like any person at that age of my age I will be thinking about the foreign country. When I landed there, I've seen the same sky, the same land, same air, same water. Everything is same. All our Panchabhutas, the five elements, they are same everywhere. And only the language was different, their color was different, and their buildings were different. Other than that, I don't see. And I thought at that time, even the poetry is same everywhere, except few differences here and there. So at that time, an idea came to me that, when I start doing the poetry translations of different countries or different lands, I will name them as the same sky, same land, same air, same water, same light. So all the Panchabhutas name I wanted to name them at that time. That was only a small idea it came to me. But I was not knowing that I will be able to involve myself and do it. So after coming back from Spain, whatever the poems I have translated, the Western poets, that has come in the form of a book. I named it as the Ade Akasham, that means the same sky. The same sky, so many varieties of the Western poets are there. So I named it as, and that book has come as the first book of that series of thought of the five elements. So that was the same sky. I think I will show the book. In fact, yeah. So this is that Ade Akasham, the same sky. This is the book, first of the series of the elements, the five elements book that has come. So I don't know whether it is of interest to you, because I'm talking about the journey of my translation works. So
Yes, sir. It is very interesting.
okay.
Landing. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Please continue, sir. Yes.
And after that, the noble poets, I thought, there are so many noble poets. At that time, one of the literary magazine that was coming up in Hyderabad called Palapita. And the editor was a friend to me. He said, can you contribute something to this? I said, there are so many noble poets, and why should not we start a series of noble poets' works, translating their poems, introducing them, and writing about their life journey as well. And he said, why don't you write one or two pieces and give it to me? Let me see how it goes. I did for 2-3 translators from 1901 onwards. And it has interested him. He said, in the first edition itself, he said, I'm going to write about all the noble poets from 1901 onwards. So it has come as a series of 37 poets for 37 months about the noble poets who got Nobel Prize for their poetry from 1901 onwards. And this is that book. This is the Nobel Poetry book. So 37 poets are there right from 1901 onwards. I have introduced them, I've written about their life, and I have translated some of their best poems I could collect. So this is the Nobel Poetry work that has come later. And after that, so based on this, I thought, why should not I start writing on the thought I had in Spain about the five elements. So that has triggered me to write the world poetry, introducing each and every part of the world and the poetry that is coming from that part of the world, and introducing the major poets of that place and the major poetry that is coming from that place, and translating those major poets' best poems, which I thought I could translate. So that has also come in one of the literary magazines here. the serial. So and that has come. That I named it as once the series is completed. So it has come in the book form. This is called Ade Gali. That means the same air. This is the world poetry. So in my brief, I told how many countries I could collect and how many points are there in this. Perhaps you can go through that. I don't want to get into those details, except giving you the journey of my translation works. So this is the Ade Gali, that means the same air. So this is the second of those the elements work I was referring to. So this is the world poetry that has come next. And after that, I thought, why should not we concentrate on our own country, our own land? So perhaps God has put me in the right track in the sense, first of all, I read the world poetry, then our own poetry of our own land. And I was so thrilled that, so we are no less than any other point in the other poets in the world. The every only thing I was cherishing more is that the language was not a bar for me in the sense if I had been to Gujarat for collecting their works and reading their poetry, I felt as if I am a Gujarati. I am not a Telugu person. The language has not put me in any difficult situation anywhere, wherever I had been to. Kashmir, I felt, I am a Kashmiri, I am not a Telugu person. So Odisha also, I felt like that, So perhaps a strong base is there for us to feel like that. Wherever you go, you feel as if, you are an Indian and the language is not a different from that. So maybe my coming up, my blood also is like that. My grandfather was there in South Africa. My father was born in South Africa. I'm born in West Bengal. And as the part of my work, I had been to different places of India. So I felt, as if I'm not a Telugu person as such. I'm a generic, an Indian or maybe a different person altogether, wherein I see from a different level than on my own footings. So let me come to the works that I have done after that. When I came to our own land and started reading the books. So I have taken all the languages of India and all the recognized languages. Apart from that, there are languages which are not recognized, but they have plenty of poetry there in that. And some of the languages we have forgotten, like Pali, Prakriti, and Sanskrit also is one of the languages which we had, which has abundant of poetry there in Sanskrit. And apart from that, the folk, the Adivasis languages, we have so many in the country. Perhaps their poetry is no inferior to any of the poetries in the country. Their poetry has come from their heart. So it is from outburst of what they wanted to say, because they talk with the people in poetry. They talk with the people in their songs. Their songs doesn't reflect their feelings, not only their feelings, their sufferings and their happiness and their connections with the nature, their connection with the people. So everything you can see in their poetry. In fact, I felt, while going through their poetry, I felt they are talking about the history of their culture, their history of their language. And some of the poems, I see a different thing there. Anandji, one interesting thing I have found was some of the poems. They are not written. Actually, they are there. They come from generation to generation. Some poems are there. If you take the same poem, which was there some 40, 50 years back, the same poem, and the same poem after 40, 50 years, it gets adds on, it gets modified in such a way that it reflects how they are going. And that is very interesting thing I found in the Adivasi poetry. And so about perhaps 40 languages I have covered in this 900 pages book of the same land. I have named it as Same Land. The poetry of 40 languages is there in this, about 900 pages book. While doing this work on the folk, so Anandji's help has become very immense to me. But for that, I could have missed a lot of things of poetry from this land, our land. In fact, one of my friend whom I have taken as an editor for this, he was reminding me, you're going far and far and far. The book will bulge like anything, so you have to put a full stop somewhere. And I could not. I was not able to come out of this Adivasi's poetry. It took me a long time, and I was fully immersed in that. So finally, I had to put a full stop somewhere because I had to go to the next language. It was something like that, in the earlier days, for going to a place, you have to change the trains at different places. In one train, you are fully accustomed, you have the people around, you talk to them, you make friends with them. And by the time, the destination, now one more station comes where you have to get down and change your train. And you feel bad about it, you don't know how you will be there in that train and what sort of friends you will get and how you can go through that. It was a similar situation to me like that. So I was happy with some Odia poetry there. By the time I had to get down, go to the Bengali poetry. So I don't know how is that, how I'll get the poetry there. So I gone through different places at different times, and it was a time wherein I enjoyed myself. It's not I don't call it as a regret, but it's an occasion wherein I could get the other poetry and poets to see and talk to them, and then get their poetry, and then imbibe and then take into this book. This is that the Adenela, the same land. The third of that Panchabhutas, the elements work. The third in that series. So after that, while doing this work, I am fortunate to come across the Charyapada. Charyapada, the Bengalis call it. I was wonderstruck knowing that, this is the first poetry of so many languages of that part of the world, like Bengali, Odia, Assamese, Biharis, the Maithili, that time. So I was thinking as, how come the same book, all these languages claim as their first poetry book from that language. So I was very curious to know about it, but it is not an easy task to go into the Charyapada. It is such a difficult poetry not because of the language of the poetry. The language is, of course, is difficult because it was written in Apabharamsa. So all these languages they used to claim because their language words are there in those poems. Odia language words are there, Bengali language words are there, Assami language words are there, Maithili language words are there. So because of it was evolving at that time, and it was not fully Odia, it was not fully Bangla. So that was the time of that language. And because of that, every one of those languages, they used to claim it as their first poetry language. So, and not only that, I was curious because it could able to be known that we have such a great book only in 19th century, although it was written somewhere in 10th century by different Siddhacharyas of different places. Not only the words, even the Siddhacharyas who have written those poems, they belong to these places. They don't belong to a one place. They belong to Odisha, they belong to Bangla, they belong to Assam. So they belong to different places. So that was another interesting thing. At that point of time, there was no demarcation like, I am a Oriya, I am a Bangla, Bengali, I am a Telugu, like that, There was no demarcation there. They were all unique in the sense, they for them the language is same for all these parts of the world. So that was another interesting thing which made me to go through that. But it took me a long time to get into that because it was a language called it as a Sandhya Bhasha. Sandhya Bhasha. That means, the light which you can see in the evenings. It is it's not fully light, it's not fully dark. So that time of that means they wanted to say that you can't fully understand, not that you can't say that you are not understood. So it makes you in between. So they named it as Sandhya Bhasha, twilight language they called it. And it was very interesting. Although they could able to get only 50 points from the Nepal Royal Library, the person who got it as a Bengali, Prasad. So he actually, because he got it and he has translated it to Bengali, so he has claimed it that it's a more Bengali rather than any other thing. That is a natural thing with every one of us. Telugu. I feel that this thing is great. I want to take pride in calling it as a Telugu sort of thing. So that was leaving that aside. So although 50 points they could able to collect, not that all the 50 points he could get it. Only 47 he could get it fully, and 3 he could not because it was torn out, and he could not get it there. And one more was only half of that was there. That 3 points and the half one they could get it from the Tibetan language. They had already translated it from Tibetan language. They translated to Bengali and those languages later. So it has become 50 languages. Although it was 50 points, so Munidatta, who was a Sanskrit scholar, who has written a commentary of those on those 50 points. So there at the end of the 50th point, he says that he could collect 100 points like this. Only 50 out of them he could write commentary and make it as a form of a book. So it's very tragic as to say that, what about those 50 points he has not written any commentary? Where are they? And what is their poetry? What is there in those 50 points? None of us knows, because nobody could be able to get those. The other 50 points, he said he has not written commentary. Only whatever the commentary he has written in for those 50 points, we could get it, and we have named it as Charyapada. In fact, he has named it as Charyapada. Okay, that I think is about the Charyapada. I will show the book I translated. Sorry. So this is the Charyapada, all the 50 points I translated, and not only that, I could able to collect the information about those 22 Siddhacharyas who has written those poems, their brief, and also all the poems they have written it in the ragas, the in which they can sing about. And those ragas also are about 18 ragas they could able to prescribe for those 50 points. And whosoever has written, fortunately they have written their names as well, although the names what the Siddhacharyas have written, they are not their original names. So they have changed their names. They were all mostly Sanskrit scholars, and although they were Sanskrit scholars, they know different languages from different parts of the country, and their poetry is this. It is one of the best poetry. In fact, this got translated into Japan, China, Tibet before we could translate into our language. That is the funniest part of it. So although we claim it, all the languages, about 4 or 5 languages, though claim it as their first language, first poetry book. So we could get it, we could put a hand onto this only in the 19th century. Before that, Tibet has translated, Chinese have translated, Japanese have translated, in Germany also it was translated. It's such a great book it is. I'm happy that, I could able to go through this, understand whatever I could, and whatever the understanding I had, whether right or wrong, I put it in the form of a book. That is the Charyapada. So while doing that work, while doing the same land work, I have another good thing that I have come across is the Bhakti poetry in our country. That has fascinated me. While doing that, my concentration was more on the poetry of different parts of the country, of different languages of the country. But Bhakti was an inner layer that was going through in every part of the country. And I could not spend more time or more pages for that in the Adinela poetry. So I thought, if time permits, I have to spend more time on the Bhakti poetry in the country. So that is how the Bhakti poetry has come. I named it as Ade Kanti. Kanti is light. So the same light. So this is a 750 pages book. Throughout the country, how the Bhakti movement has started, how it flourished. So are taken in this. So in this also, all the languages of this country comes in. So this is another work which has fascinated me and put me, it took around some 4 or 5 years to complete, because, this also requires a lot of in-depth reading, because the funniest part in this work is that, the poetry is certainly, you can take it as an authentic work, but the stories around those poets is something sometimes anyone can get a doubt that, is this the correct one? Because, if somebody is famous, we try to build so many stories around them. And these poets, the Bhakti poets, they were immersed in their work. They were immersed, connected with the God. And they had no complaints. And they don't want to talk about them. They don't want to talk about the situations around them. So to collect the personal information about them, after 100 years or 200 years or 300 years, it will be very difficult for anybody to get it. Fortunately, they could collect the poetries of those poets, that itself is a great thing. That we should take it as a pride. We could able to get them. We are not lost. Although we are lost so much, this Bhakti poetry, I think we could get most of the Bhakti poetry, except those Buddhist literature. So Buddhist literature we lost so much. Like this one, which had to go to Nepal to safeguard this. But the other Bhakti poets, so they could only they could do it because not only they were connected to the God, they were talking, they were singing their songs in their own language. So till that time, it was Sanskrit which was ruling the country. So if you have to talk to God, you have to talk to God in Sanskrit. The person who knows Sanskrit should be a mediator to talk to God. And to reach God, there are so many barricades which you have to pass through. Even now also we have, not that, we have crossed all those limits. Those limits are still there. But Bhakti has given some way to talk to the God in your own language. Till that time, they were not knowing that, God knows every language. He can understand every language. You can talk to God in your own language. God can understand that. God is one, and he can understand any language. That sort of feeling that has created the Bhakti poetry. And not only that, even the ladies who were confined to the houses, so in the name of God, so they could get able to come out of the houses, and they have written the best poetries, which were not expected from them till such time. So that was another. The Bhakti poetry has given 2-3 prominent things for us. Is one is that these regional languages, whatever you see now, has come into the forefront during the Bhakti poetry. So till such time it was Sanskrit that was ruling the country. And whosoever knows the Sanskrit is the person to be taken as a priest, he is the person to be taken as a pandit, he is the person to be taken as the professor of the language. The other things were kept at a lower. That was another thing, and because they could able to speak in their language, all the lower strata people also started coming out, and they also joined the Bhakti movement. And Bhakti movement certainly has played a greater role in India. And but for the Bhakti movement, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, whatever we have, that has laid a strong foundation in India. So wherever you go, they may talk about Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavat, and all that in their own language, in their own way. But the roads are same. The Ram is same, Ravana is same, Sita is same. So everybody knows about it. So that has laid a strong foundation for India. That perhaps is the foundation on which the India is almost feeling like one, although we have so many differences of languages, provinces, and all that, but it's still, we are on the same base. So that is about the Ade Kanti, the same light. This is the fourth of that. The translation works on the elements. Now only the water is remaining for me to complete whatever I wanted to do it in translation. So in one of the literary magazines that was coming from, that is still coming from Nellore, I have introduced the national and international poets for about 8 years and translating their poems. I have translated, I have introduced 100 poets. After the 100th poet, I stopped writing for them. So those 100 poets, national and international poets book, I named it as The Same Water. And that will be coming in a month or two. So that completes my journey of translations of based on the 5 elements. So apart from that, I did even the Sitakanta Mahapatra's Bhartavarsha I have translated. In fact, he has sent it to me. Sitakanta Mahapatra has sent it, his Hindi and English books to me. He said, you better translate it to Telugu. So I was thrilled. I said, sir, I'm a learner, I'm a student. How can I do it? I said, no, I'm asking you to do it. You please do it. So I had to take his word, and I have translated his Sita Kanda Mahapatra's Bharatavarsha. So this has come in Odia, and Hindi and English also has come. In fact, English translation, he himself has done it. So apart from that, one more thing which is away from all this is Mia poetry. This has got some political angle in that, the Assam, the Bangladesh people who are living on those Brahmaputra river, these things, bankments. So they have written their own anguish and their own feelings, and they have called it as Mia poetry. I translated the Assamese Mia poetry as Mia poetry. So, and apart from that, there are about 14 the ladies who have got the Nobel Prize for literature itself. Not that, there are other ladies as well for science and all that. Whosoever got their histories and whatever they have the work done, this is called from 1901 onwards, whosoever got the literary Nobel Prize for the ladies, that is another book that has come. So my own English poetry book is this. Somebody has translated it, and it has come in the form of a book. This is called The Smile That Migrated and Other Poems. So I confined myself to the translations. Apart from that, I am basically a poetry lover, a student who wants to learn from all of you, from all the books, from all the parts of the world. So I don't want to confine myself to a particular language or particular place. So there are about 9 collections of my poetry. I have written some stories as well that got translated to English, Hindi, and all that. And I write so many articles, and which also gets published in the literary magazines. So all that time, I'm entering 80 years this year in November. I'll be entering 80. So by the time I'm there in 80, I would like to wind up my show of the works I'm doing it. I don't know how long I'll be able to do this, but I only pray God that, whatever I wanted to do it, let me complete it before I go and say goodbye. No, that's all I have any. I
Yes,
don't
sir.
know. I bored you perhaps mostly.
No, we enjoyed it thoroughly, sir. Thank you so much. Would you like to say something about how you came across Bhima Bhai and his poems?
Yeah, and naturally, and I've gone to different languages. How can I miss Bhima Boy? That all the poets of that place. In fact, they can't be. If you take it, if I take the Odia, so all the poets, Bhima Boy is certainly a poet who cannot be set aside. He has played his own role, great role. And yesterday I was asking him about the Mahima movement. I think at that time was there, and his guru was that Mahima. What was it?
Mahima Goswami.
Mahima Goswami. So he was his guru. And you should appreciate them, only because, for them, the Sanskrit was the base for them. Nothing was there before them to take from. Like, for me, I have so many books to take from. I cannot say that, it is my original work. Okay. It is the work of so many people. I have so much of things before me to take it. For Bhima Boy and those people, nothing was there for them. It had to come from them, and it has come from them. And that, in their own language. And they had to evolve not only the language and the poetry also. They have to put it in such a way that their parents, their mother, their family, and the people around them should understand, and they should take it forward. That is how they had a base. They had a thinking that, whatever they write, it is not for them. It is for the whatever they could able to say. It should reach the people. It should make them feel good about it and take it forward. And they played a great role. And that too, people who doesn't have anything on their hand to take it. Like I said, I had a lot of things. I don't claim it. This is my works. This is the works of so many people. I should thank all of them for giving me so much. For Bhima Boy and all, whom they can thank except God, except their own ability, nothing else.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate the range of poets and the themes you have chosen, from the ancient to the modern. You have taken the emerging fields also, like tribal poetry, then Mia poetry and all. They are very recent ones, but yet you have covered them all. And another thing is that you don't make a distinction that this on the basis of ideology. This is like this is like that. So I won't touch this. I will work on this. So very inclusive kind of approach you have adopted. And without any financial support, without any project, anything, Mr. Rao has been carrying out his cherishing his interest. That is a remarkable thing. And when you say you are making a good contribution, he doesn't agree with that. He says, no, I don't know whether I'm making a contribution, but I like these things, so I am doing it. So thank you very much. It was a great joy.
It's a learning for me.
Yeah.
So I'm a learner. I'm a student.
Yes.
I don't consider myself as a pandit or a professor or anything like that.
You are an eminent student.
Yes, I'm a student. I'll be more happy to be called as a student rather than something else.
So it was great listening to you. Thank you very much. And I'm sure our participants have questions to ask. They want to know more. So feel free and ask your questions. After that, we shall ask Dr. Mishra to comment. Because things are fresh, we'll invite our participants to interact with Mr. Rao.
In case Professor V.N. Patnaik is there,
yes,
let us listen to him first of all.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Please ask your questions.
That is question or suggestion, whatever, supplement.
So namaste to everybody, and namaste, and Dr. Ramarao, sort of thank you for
Doctor, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Ramarao, it's a wonderful journey of yours that you have shared with us. It's a very inspiring journey, and sort of you have made a remarkable contribution. And I think translation is a creative work. Although some say that okay, it's not creative, but to me translation is creative.
True.
So that way you have made a contribution to a very significant contribution to creative literature. I really don't have anything to ask. I just was enjoying listening to you and your journey. I don't have anything to ask. And about Charyapada in particular, I don't know. I hardly know anything about it. So I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I think I have read only one or two poems which are generally anthologized, and those poems. And then all that I know about them is that they deal with some kind of a degenerate tantric Buddhism.
Tantric Buddhism, yes.
Yeah, but they also say they call it degenerate. But that's a Surendra Mahanti, for example. But the point is, I don't even know what the major concerns of those poets were. So much of the effort in Odisha, at least in my time, has gone into whether they are Bengali, Odia, or Assamese, and you have given a wonderful answer to that. The best I have actually heard on the subject. So the pointless to talk about and then at that time there was no boundary like this is the Telugu boundary or this is that kind of a narrative, that kind of a story, that kind of a narrative is a beautiful explanation of this issue. And I wish if you write it kindly, or if even if a couple of pages are shared with us, we will sort of spread this argument around. So that's something. And so, what do you think about their the themes? Is there a kind of coherent theme running through all these poems of Charya, all the Charya poems, or what were they? I really don't know anything about them. I tried to understand a couple of them, but without it was difficult. But then there are explanations, but somehow I don't know. I mean, is there a kind of binding theme? Or
No,
philosophical? Yeah. Sorry.
okay, yeah, please go ahead. You have to say something. You wanted to say something more?
No. So kindly, yeah. So I really haven't read them.
No, actually, 2-3 things we have to keep in mind while understanding the Charyapadas. As you rightly said, it is Tantric Buddhism. That is the inner work they wanted to say. It is not for the generic public as such. So it is for the sadhakas. Those who are there in that Tantric Buddhism, they can understand the inner meaning of those poems. For them, they can understand it. But leaving that apart, if you take it, they talk about the surroundings at that time. They talk about the marriages at that time. They talk about how the things were going on at that time in the poems. So it gives an idea of the atmosphere, about the way the things were going at that time. That is one point we can take it from them. And not only that, they could write a language wherein, in a language and in a way, they keeping something inner and keeping something outer. Outside it says something, but inner meaning is something different. Inner meaning is meant for the people of sadhaka, those Buddhist sadhakas, those siddhas. And the outer meaning is for the people who are coming to listen to them, coming to understand something from them. So the two things making in 10-15 lines of a poem is not an easy job. They were they were in such a high order. Some of them were the professors in Nalanda, and some of them have taught the people like Nagarjuna. And they have written not only this, they have written some 50-60 books of poetries. So this is one book, because in their names it has come, in different names, Siddha's name. There are about 84 Siddhas. At that time they are nominated, these are the Siddhas. Out of that, only 22 Siddhas have written this. And their names are different. They are not at the same time, same age also. Between 700 to 1100 time frame, these Siddhas have come. And their poems are not, they're written as a Charyapada. They're written as a Tantric Buddhist teaching sort of material. And the Munidatta, who happened to collect some 100 poems, could able to only take 50, and only because he has written the commentary in Sanskrit, the people could able to understand even this much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah.
If any other participant has any question, they can ask sir about it. I think someone raised a hand while sir was speaking.
Yeah, please feel free to ask your questions. It's no problem. Shabir, you have any question?
Yes, sir. I have a question, sir. Yeah, so far here we have been studying multilingualism, that is multilingual teaching of, especially in context of English language teaching. Now I came to know a multilingual poetry, a world of multilingual poetry. It is very interesting for me. My question to you, sir, how could you deal so many languages when translating poems?
Interesting, but I'm born and brought up in West Bengal. So my mother tongue is Telugu. And since I'm there in Bengal, I know Bengali. And Hindi was my second language. English was, Telugu was not my, up to 6th class only one subject I had Telugu. But English was the language with which I have been taught through. So knowing Hindi, knowing Bengali, knowing English is makes you to go to the other parts of the country. And apart from that, Bengali and Odia is almost like sister languages. If you know Hindi, if you know Bengali, you can understand most of Odia. That's what I feel. My experience is like the Kannada and Telugu for us. Kannada and Telugu, they are almost sister languages. Even the script also you can read. Kannada script you can read, and the Kannada people can read Telugu script, almost more or less same. So like that, I worked in different parts of the country after my studies. So I was there in Nagpur, I was there in Bombay, I was there in Calcutta, I was there in Delhi. I worked in yes, the other part of it, I worked in railways. These railway reservations, what you see now, that I was one of the key members in that railway reservation software, the networking software from anywhere to anywhere, the ticket you are getting now. I was one of the key members. The ticket what we are getting now, that ticketing software has entirely been done by me. I feel pride in seeing the ticket anywhere. So, while doing that work, I was there in Calcutta for so many months. I was there in Delhi for so many years. I was there in Nagpur. I was there in Bombay. I was there in Madras. So I was there in Bangalore while working in the Hewlett Packard after my railways work. So I've been to different places in the country, and I have a fascination I have a respect for the other languages. I would like to see what best is there in their language, to learn from them. So that way, so learning makes you to understand. If you start hating the language, you are gone. You can't get into that. if you start liking the language, if you start trying to understand them, you feel happy, you feel one of them, and that is how I could get into that. Perhaps that answers your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Really nice answers I got. Actually, you were the Google Translator before birth of Google Translate. I think. My another question is, sir. Nowadays people are taking help of Google Translation for translating poems and everything. So, what is your view about
No,
such
I hate
machine
that.
translation?
No, I hate that. It is only for those, who doesn't know the other language but still claim that, they know that language.
Yes,
Only
sir.
to say that they make use of the Google Translate. But Google Translate certainly is far, far behind the actual translations. And one clue I can tell about is that, I don't depend on the net for taking the points or taking any of the things. Maybe it can give you a hint about the thing, but taking that hint, I try to get into the books. Books, as you can take it as the primary source than anything else. And there is nothing like you translating it yourself rather than using the tools like Google Translate and other things. And difficulty may come in poetry translation. One clue which I have faced and which I could able to solve, I can give a source of that is that, there are poems wherein, you like the poem. So, but, there are some lines in between. It doesn't allow you to go into it deeply into that. And those lines are really important, you feel. But you don't like to leave it like that. You somehow wants to solve it. What are those lines? What is that the poet wants to say in that? So until unless you know about it, you can't solve that. You can't translate that poem. So in that connection, what I does is, if a poem is a poem which has attracted so many people, it's a very popular poem, you will find so many versions of that poem's translations in the books. Not one translator, maybe about 3-4 translators would have translated that poem. Go through that. And one of them certainly could understand those lines, and that gives you the clue about that. So you can't confine to one translator's work for translating one poem sometimes, because that poem, that translator has got understanding, partial understanding of that. Whatever understanding he had translated it. But if you see, even their translation also makes you feel that here he could not understand. He is somehow evading and somehow he is putting it aside. And I've seen some of them leaving some lines, the original lines, and then going ahead with the other lines which they have understood. So please, I don't advise any one of you to depend on the tools. Please depend on the originals. If you don't understand one original, go to the other translators' works. No, not one translator. There are n number of translators are doing the work. Maybe one of them has come very near to the soul of that poem. So pick up that. So that will solve some of the hindrances in the translations.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, that was wonderful. So actually, before talking to Mr. Rao, I used to think that Odia poetry starts from 15th century. Our Sarala Das is the Adi Kavi, and from there. But
Adhikari because of the language. Adi Kavi, because of
Yeah.
the Odia language, he was the
But-
first to have started. the-
But after talking to him, I changed my impression. And Charyapada, that was 13th century or before that, much before that. So revealing information. Dr. Ajit, you would like to ask a few questions? Dr. Ajit Kumar Kalu. Ajit, no.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, sir, I don't have anything very specific to ask. I mean, in fact, I don't have anything to ask. I'm sorry, I joined late. I had
It's
some
okay.
other.
No problem. No problem. No. Good that you
But
joined.
it was I was towards the end of the talk, but no, uh, really, whatever I heard, whatever I could make of it, it was wonderful. So I joined only towards the end of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So now, shall we invite Dr. Mahendra Kumar Mishra, who would like to comment on the talk and add more to Charyapada and things like that.
Thank you, Anand bhai. I enjoyed the deliberations of Sir Ramarao sir. There are two ways of acquiring a knowledge, or two ways of playing a music. One is learning classical music and sing it. The other is singing spontaneously. One is acquisition and other is learning. Acquisition of music is very spontaneous and it comes from the heart. And learning of music comes from the classicity and there is a principles of learning. But learning is made principles before that it was a natural learning. So Mukundan's learning is a natural learning. Whatever comes to his heart, he tried to learn it. So the learning is open. His learning is not restricted to any examination or any kind of testing. But his learning is very close to his heart. So therefore, he has some eyes. He has those eyes, that eyes helped him to see the world around him, whatever comes, whether it is Gujarat or Maratha or West Bengal or Delhi or Karnataka, that does not matter. The knowledge is one, love is one, wisdom is one, manifested in many languages. So if you have the passion to understand the land or the human or the feelings, then language cannot be a barrier. But still, we have a lot of languages, and one language keeps us away from the other languages, although there is reciprocity of language. So to break those barriers is the beauty of understanding other language. So when I found that Mukundaji was talking about the whole gamut of his process of learning is a matter of interest. That how do you like Marathi or Gujarati or Kannada? And an interesting thing he told, that once you know Telugu, you are supposed to learn Kannada. And Mukundan is one person who knows both the families of language. One is the Dravidian language, which is not his first language, but Bangla was his first language. A person from Telugu background and his mother tongue or his first language or home language is Bangla, then he learned Telugu in class 6th and became a bilingual in both Dravidian language family and Indo-Aryan language family. And through Indo-Aryan language family, he learned Odia, Bangla and Hindi and all that. And through Telugu, he learned Kannada. And if one is able to understand Hindi and Odia and Bangla, Gujarati and Marathi or Nepali and Bhojpuri or Maithili is not a very far up from, or Assamese is not a far from. I also have the same feelings that I can understand almost all the Indo-Aryan languages of this country, bearing some this for South Indian languages, to which the words, the vocabulary I can understand, but not the grammar. So if you open your ear and brain and eyes open, then all the languages is to come to you. They penetrate into your mind and conscience. Some of them are intelligible, some of them are not. But the idea is that this profession, writing a poetry or learning, is not an occupation of Mr. Mukunda. He is a IT professional, and this is his passion. So, and that passion really is a force to live a meaningful life, to acquire knowledge and wisdom. That way, this gives us an idea that as the people we are in the profession of writing essays and teaching literature or philosophy, whatever, has the same phenomena with Mukundaji, and that really should be a habit of all the persons who are educated. It does not matter if somebody is a doctor or an engineer or a IT professional, but bread earning should be correlated with your mind's food, creativity, imagination, understanding the world, understanding the people and languages. It really gives us a very good intellectuality and the exercise of brain. The research says that a multilingual brain is always better than a monolingual brain. The monolinguality has that blindness through which he cannot see the other world with her own language, but a multilingual person can see the other worlds through multiple languages, multiple people, multiple places. So that way, Makundji is a fortunate person he's like a paribrajaka, traveler, frequent traveler from one place to the other, and gather the experiential knowledge from the areas. This is one thing that I must compliment to Mr. Makundji. Second one is Charyapada. Charyapada is a Buddhist poetry. It is a mystic poetry which represents the outer nature in its words and the inner philosophy in its meaning. The outer nature is the Ucha Ucha Parbata Tahi Basai Savari Vali. What that is? What Ucha Parvata, and what is that Savari Valley is sitting on the mountain? That is the metaphorical image in which the question of Atma and Paramatma, or the Jiva and Parama is manifested. All the mystic poems, that is, there are more than 50 or 60 Charyapada, and out of that, our Odia scholar used to say that 18 Siddhacharyas are out of 84, 18 of them were from Odisha, Kanupa and Luipa and all that. Savaripa, yeah, because of this, Odisha was a Savara land. And interestingly, the pre-Sarala age, all these languages, this Charyapada language is the original form of originating Ardhamagadhi language in Odisha, Bengal and Assam. Just imagine a time where there was no Odisha, no Bengal and no Assam, and a language was prevalent as the spoken language of the people during 8th to 9th century in the whole area, in the whole eastern India, including Bangladesh. Today, politically, we are demarcating this into Bangladesh, Assam, Odisha, and Bangla and Maithili or Nepali. But a time was there when Buddhism was in its peak and the Charyapada was the language of the people, Pali Bhasha or Santha Bhasha. And with that, the philosophy of life and understanding the body, Sarira Tattva, understanding the body to make yoga sadhana and survive for a long time, one. And secondly, that practice of yoga to survive the body, and then practice of yoga to attain the spirituality. Body and spirituality, these two things were found in those Charyapada. Therefore, most of the songs are talking about Olata Brukhya, the inverted tree. That Soham and Hamsa. That means the control of aspiration, the respiratory system, and attainment of longevity through your purification of body through the inhaling of air.
The first
And
poem of Lohipa itself says that.
Yeah.
Lohipa is from the Odisha.
Yeah.
And his poem was taken as the first poem of those 50 poems.
Which one? Kaliye Bata Rundhela.
Yeah, first Charyapada poem is Lohipa's. And that he talks about this, the breathing exercise.
Yeah.
Is there, you know, that has been taken as the first poem of these Charyapadas.
See, and there is one. Mario Sasu Nananda Ghare Sali. Mario Sasu Nananda. Yeah. Mario Sasu Nananda Ghare Sali. And then a lot of things. And the Ka Tarubara Panchavidala. Chanchala Chiye Paitha Kala.
That is
Lohipa Paribana. Lui Bhanai Guru Puchya Jana. Sakala Sabahita Kahi Kariyai. Sukha Dukate Nichit Mariyai. Chadiyu Chandaka Bandhaka Patere Pasa. Sunu Pasa Vidi Lahure Pasa. So the whole thing is related to body and spirituality. Body and spirit. So I am really very much.
That has been taken as the first poem of the Charyapada. That is
Which one?
The great thing.
Tell me, sir.
That is the first poem of the Charyapada they have taken.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, is it called the Luipada?
Luipa.
Actually,
Pada means it's a respect. Like, you know, in Telugu we call Garu. Gauri is with respect.
Yeah, this is what came when I searched online, the one that I posted in the chat box right now.
Yeah.
Is there an English translation of the Charyapadas?
See, Sonu, there is a book called Ashcharya Charya Chaya.
Okay.
Written by Karuna Karakara. He was the professor of Sanskrit in Ravensa University, where you are studying now. And in that book, he has given the detailed discussion about the meaning of Charyapada. So the Assamese or the Nepali or Bengali or Odia, who really claims the Charyapada as their own, is a permanent, now it is a present phenomena. After Mahamahi Maharaprasad Shastri discovered all these things. But before that, if you imagine it of the 9th century to 13th century poetry of Buddhism, then it is a language of the whole Eastern India.
Correct.
By that time, this political division of Bangla, Assam and Odisha was not there. Rather, it was known as a Buddhist area. Eastern India was the Buddhist area where Buddha was born, also that area. Kapila Vastu is mostly part of, influenced by Eastern India and the language also. And then that is the beauty. And from that point of view, if we see the concept of time, the time when this Charyapada was originated, now we people cannot say that Charyapada belong to Western Odisha. Because of their Halo Dombi Toha Sange Kari Mama Swango, Nikhina Joy Nirguna Jogi Lango. If there are 2 to 3 words that is connected to our language, we just cannot claim that this is the whole thing is ours. So it is a universal phenomenon. That was the language area of Charyapada by that time. So I think from that point of view, it is that this is a liberal view instead of fighting these 3 states for ownership of Charyapada. So,
But
Charyapada,
one thing I can say that, all of them, they take pride, their language words are there in that such a great work. So
yeah.
that way they can feel pride about that. Their language words are there in those poems.
Yes, sir, because that was the poems they propagated not for language identity, but for the philosophy of Buddha.
Right, true, very
But
true.
now when the linguists came out, when they found their languages are very similar to the Odia, Bangla and Assamese, then they started telling that this is the oldest form of this. So that is a kind of asserting identity one over the other, but it has nothing to do with that. But my point is that looking the whole text from the temporal point of view and spatial point of view, if you see that all those Charyapadas belong to the whole Eastern India,
Correct.
from Nepal to Eastern India. Yeah.
Correct.
So thank you very much for this is a classical poetry that you are working on, and see the nature, see the persons, see the landscape, and also see the philosophy behind that. It is very interesting. Thank you very much for the beautiful deliberations, and we hope that you will once again you will come with your new ideas to us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks a lot.
So, Bramso, what do you?
Sir?
The vote of thanks?
Yes, sir. Lingaraj sir is not here, so I request Shabir sir to do that. Shabir sir, can you please propose the vote of thanks?
No, Lingaraj was here.
No, he was here, but he went. He had some work actually.
I
He
see.
informed me.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Actually, this Folklore Foundation has changed my views. I have been with this for about 2 years since I started PhD research, and my honorable supervisor, Professor Anand Mahan sir, has engaged me with these such activities. Today's presentation was a wonderful one, and we got a wonderful presentation from Sir Mukunda Ramarao about translations, great translations. So I thank our honorable presenter, honorable today, and also I thank the Folklore Foundation chairman, president, and also thank my the honorable advisor to Folklore Foundation, Dr. Anand Anand. As Professor, as the founder of Folklore Foundation said, that is Mr. Mahendra Mishra said that Charyapada language was a language of the Eastern India. Actually, that was the common language of Eastern India. And one more thing is that although languages has been changed and because of evolution we have got new languages, but what I think our souls are still the same. We are still of the same soul. We are still of the same belief of the same language. Thank you everybody for giving us a scope to be in the same soul. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So let me thank